Hey, it's National ERISA and Long-Term Disability Attorney Nancy Cavey, and I want to welcome you to this week's episode of Winning Isn't Easy. My special guest is Cody-Hopkins. Karen is a dear friend of mine, and I think that she is the preeminent student loan attorney in the United States. I've asked her to talk with us today about student loans and disability. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you very much, Nancy. It's wonderful to be with you.
I want to start out by talking about what's happening in the world of student loans in 2022. Can you fill us in?
Sure. And there is a great deal going on. We have a great deal with the Department of Education. Under the new administration, they're announcing quite a bit of student loan forgiveness. There are two major student loan forgiveness packages that they've announced recently. For almost every student who went to Corinthian colleges for a certain wide range of dates, they're going to totally forgive the student loans because under the borrower defense to repayment, they feel that the schools did not provide proper education. Then just this week, they announced that they're doing the same student loan forgiveness for federal loans for people who went to ITT Technical Institute. So those are two school-specific forgiveness programs that they've announced, and people will be hearing about that directly from the Department of Education over the next couple of months. We're talking about a couple of 100,000 people who will get complete forgiveness. So the process will take a while, but it's going to be relief that people have earned because of the problems with the schools. Then there are a number of other programs. There are issues with the borrower, the income-driven repayment plan. They did an audit and discovered the servicers had not been properly administering the plan. So they're going to give people some special credit into that program. They're also under public service loan forgiveness, which is an important program that has not been well handled over the years. They have something called the limited waiver. So they're offering people additional chances to get credit for forgiveness in that program. There's just a whole other range of issues going on because of a large class action called Sweet versus Cardona, and they're going to settle 153 for-profit universities are going to have their students' loans forgiven under the borrower defense to repayment program. Some of those people have been waiting up to 6 years to find an answer, and now they'll get a blanket answer and get forgiveness. So there's a great deal going on with the Department of Education. In the world of private student loans, there's only really one major thing that I'm currently aware of, and that is Navient, one of the private student lenders. They also do federal work, but they do make a lot of private. They announced with 39 state attorney generals that there's going to be forgiveness for a number of people for loans, whether they're private or federal, but it's very specific and detailed. But there's quite a bit. Keeping up keeps quite a bit of it. But the main thing, I think, for today's topic is there's been a change in the federal total and permanent disability program.
All right, great. Well, let's take a short break, and we'll be back to talk about that important topic because many of my clients who are getting Social Security disability or who are applying for their short or long-term disability benefits have student loans, and they always ask me, what can I do? What should I do? How do I deal with my loans? And this is a perfect topic. So let's take a break and we'll be back in a second.
Have you been robbed of your peace of mind from your disability insurance carrier? You owe it to yourself to get a copy of Robbed of Your Peace of Mind, which provides you with everything you need to know about the long-term disability claim process. Request your free copy of the book at kvlaw.com today.
Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy and my special guest, Karen Cody-Hopkins. Karen, let's talk about the wonderful world of discharges as a result of disability. Can you fill us in as to what's going on, what the requirements are, how to apply, how to get help with the application, how long it takes, what happens if it's denied, and the other thing, anything else you think we need to know about forgiveness of student loans as a result of disability?
Sure, Nancy. The Department of Education for federal student loans, all federal student loans, but only federal student loans, has a rather comprehensive program that has some very specific issues you have to know about. There are 3 ways to get a total and permanent disability discharge of your federal student loans. First, for veterans. If you're a veteran and you have 100% disability rating from the Veterans Administration, normally the Veterans Administration is supposed to notify the Department of Education that if you're 100% disability rating, your student loans, your federal student loans should be discharged. And they have automated that process now, which it didn't used to be.
Right.
So that normally the veteran should get notified that their student loans are eligible for a discharge. And it should happen relatively simply without the veteran having to do very much. Now, that works well, but every once in a while, the two departments don't talk to each other and somebody gets missed. So there is an application that you can fill out to notify the Department of Education that you're a veteran and you qualify. There's also a process for the people that you're familiar with, Nancy, the people who are getting Social Security disability. Now, there's supposed to be a more automated process there. They are working on it. The Department of Education and the Social Security Administration are talking and exchanging information, but it's not everybody on Social Security disability who's eligible for the Department of Education disability discharge for the loans. The person has to have a medical rating that their normal Social Security disability medical review will only happen every 5 years or more, or that the condition is one that will result in death, or one that's going to keep, and so the problem is that they're only partway through automating the process of notification. So there is an application, and sometimes you have to go and take your Department of Education application, go to the Social Security Disability Administration and get something called a BPQY report. Nancy, can you maybe mention that a little bit more?
Sure. When you apply for disability benefits and ultimately you're awarded, the Social Security Administration or a judge will review the medical records and determine when they anticipate there might be medical improvement. And it could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. In my view, it's a bit subjective in terms of how they determine whether there's going to be improvement. So as I understand what you're saying is, if the Social Security Administration has determined that there will be no medical improvement for at least 5 years, that's sort of going to be an automatic, in quotes, discharge. But if they've determined that you may have improvement in years 1 to 5, you still have to submit an application. And you can obviously talk about the documentation that needs to be part of that and the fact that they're going to recertify your disability in the course of that 1 to 5 years. Is that correct?
It is, to the extent that if your rating is 5 years or more, the Department of Education will give you a total and permanent disability discharge based on your Social Security rating. However, if you have, say, a 3-year disability review under Social Security, you can't use the Social Security determination to give you the Department of Education. You have to go to method 3. So yes, you can have the Social Security disability. It does not automatically give you total and permanent disability. So you have to go to the third way, which is the physician's certification. Unlike the documentation that you have to go through for Social Security disability, the Department of Education has a simple, basically 2-page form. 1 page, you sign up, you fill out your contact information, you state that you're not a veteran, you're not applying as a veteran, and you're not applying under your Social Security rating, whether you have one or not, but you're going to have your doctor, and it has to be an MD or a DO. They're proposing to allow people like nurse practitioners and others to sign these forms in a couple of years, but that hasn't been approved. So you have to have your doctor or your MD or DO fill out a 1-page form, and no medical records are required. So the funniest problem we have is that the doctors who are used to filling out more complicated disability forms for either private disability or Social Security are a little sort of taken aback by the fact that the Department of Education form, which they don't see very often, is only 1 simple page. But what they have to say as your doctor is that you either have one of three things. You either have to have a condition that's going to result in death. You have to have a condition that is going to last more than 60 months. Now, they don't have to say when the condition started, and they don't have to exactly give a date of disability. They just have to say that they believe that it will impact your working ability for at least 60 months. And then they have to say that you can't do gainful employment. And there's about a half a page form where they have to give some information about your diagnosis and its impact on your ability to work. But it's a kind of a strange situation because the doctor is saying you're disabled enough to not do gainful employment. But the secret is that does not mean you can't work at all. Many people, especially those who ever applied before, will know that the Department of Education used to kind of do a wage testing. They used to check for 3 years to see if you made more than the poverty level, essentially about $17,000. Well, under COVID, they've announced they've dropped the income monitoring part of this analysis, and they do not intend to bring it back. So really, all you have to do is communicate with your doctor about the form and about the fact that you can still get Social Security disability benefits. You can get other kinds of benefits. And now they're not doing any income checking. So it's not that you can't work at all. It's just that under the medical definition as defined in the paperwork, you just can't do substantial gainful employment. So we find that people need that assistance to understand that and be able to explain that to their doctor. Go ahead.
So, Karen, most of my clients will have their doctors complete with residual functional capacity form in the context of their Social Security case, or attending physician statement forms in the context of their long-term disability case. But let's say the doctor doesn't want to fill out this form. Can a person go to another doctor on a one-time visit and have that doctor fill out the form? Or does the doctor who fills out the form and signs off on it have to be a treating physician?
No, they don't have to be a treating physician. They can be any doctor who evaluates that the doctor in good faith has seen you and can fill out the form. So this is why very often you will find that people who have multiple conditions or they have a PCP and a specialist, I basically say to them, so I explain the form. I have a special letter that I send to explain the form to the doctors.
Right.
And I have the person take the form and my letter into their doctor. And I personalize it for the doctor after I get the name. Sometimes I give them 2 or 3 letters for different doctors because the doctors just aren't as familiar with the process. And basically, very often we find that one doctor may not feel comfortable, but another will. So it really comes down to the fact that you have to communicate with the doctor what the doctor's signing, what the doctor's saying about your condition, and have one that understands your condition well enough to feel comfortable. The other thing is that sometimes you're in an evolving medical situation. And I find that people may talk to the doctor's a little reluctant, maybe not, but as things progress over the next few months or maybe even the next few years, the doctor will become comfortable, or a different doctor who comes to treat you. So it's not a perfect process. It's very doctor dependent and doctor relationship dependent. But I have had very few people have their doctors totally refuse, where they can't find any doctor that will not sign this.
So, Karen, what happens if this application for discharge is approved? And then what happens if it isn't approved?
Okay, so once the person fills out their page and has the doctor's page, it's submitted to a company called Nelnet, which has a contract with the Department of Education to process these forms. And the main thing is, if the patient and the doctor have filled out all the blanks on the form, which is often the biggest problem, is getting the doctors to fill out every single box. But if they fill out all the boxes and they submit it, then usually you get an answer with it from Nelnet within 60 days.
Wow.
which is,
Wow.
I understand in the world of disability is a little quick. And the thing that's interesting is as long as everything is completely filled out, there have been a few cases, maybe one a year out of the many that I do, where they might come back for a doctor for some additional records. But I have, in doing over 100 cases, I've only seen that happen once. The other thing is that a lot of people don't focus on the fact that they can get a total and permanent disability discharge of all their federal student loans if they have a mental health problem. It's not just physical disability. The doctors can also sign under mental health issues. And that is a big issue. I see people with PSTD or, long-term depression, other kinds of conditions. So a lot of it, my job, is to educate my client, the patient, and then work with them to help educate the doctor. But then you submit the form. Usually within 60 days, you get a letter from Nelnet that says, yes, you've been approved. Your loans are discharged. But there is one funny caveat, Nancy.
What's that?
Because the Department of Education can't change its rules on a dime, they still have that 3-year monitoring set of rules in the rules, even though they're not following it. So you get the letter that says your loans are discharged, but then on your anniversary date for the first year, the second year, and the third year, you get a letter that says, hi, it's your anniversary date for your disability discharge. And we would normally be checking your income, but we're not. So now you get to go to the next year. And at the end of 3 years, right after your anniversary, you get a letter that says you're done for good. We're not doing anything anymore. Now they have announced they're going to get rid of this 3-year monitoring piece. And so I believe that before the end of the 3 years now, they will do away with that. And you'll get a rather permanent, immediate disability discharge. But it's just that the Department of Education does not move and turn on a dime, and it takes a while for them to change their records.
So, Karen, what are the tax consequences of a discharge?
Wonderful news on that front. So, the disability discharge says that some of your loans are forgiven. Sometimes in certain things, there are times when forgiven debt is considered income. But for the case of disability discharge, it's not. There are no tax consequences, nothing you have to do, nothing you have to report.
Great. Well, let me ask you a question. I represent folks who have individual disability policies. They're private disability policies. And many times these policies don't require a person to apply for Social Security disability benefits like an ERISA governed policy. So sometimes my clients don't want to apply for some reason for their Social Security disability benefits. How does a student loan discharge work, if at all, in the situation where someone has not applied for Social Security disability benefits?
Well, even though they're trying to increase their cooperation, the Department of Education does not normally, as far as I'm aware of, report anything to Social Security disability. So you don't have, Social Security disability is supposed to notify the Department of Education that there are people with 5-year or more reviews, but there's no other reporting that I'm aware of.
So if I have a private individual disability policy and I don't want to apply for Social Security, am I still eligible for a discharge, and how would I go about proving it?
Yes, you would use the doctor's certification process we discussed a few minutes ago. You don't have to do anything else. The other thing that happens is, as you know, when people who are getting Social Security disability, when they turn their normal retirement age, then they go from Social Security disability to normal Social Security. And in that case, you have to use the doctor's certification method. So even if you've been on Social Security disability, if you're past the age of normal retirement, then you just can go ahead and use the doctor's certification method.
Cool.
There's been some discussion, but there hasn't been any action on what if you've been on Social Security disability for many years, you've crossed over to the normal retirement age, can you use the Social Security disability to get the Department of Education? No, you just have to go through the doctor's certification method.
Well, that's fantastic. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back to talk more about what we anticipate with the Biden administration and student loans.